Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a lovely day and are ready for a new story. Before we get started, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos. He left his coat. That's the part nobody gets when I tell this, because everything else sounds like a normal breakup story. Until you know that it was January in Nebraska. It was 8 degrees that week. The wind was doing that thing where it comes sideways off the fields and gets into the stairwell. And Elliot's big black Carhartt was still hanging on the hook by our door. His side of the closet was cleared out. His razor was gone. His charger was gone. The gray duffel his grandpa gave him was gone. But the coat was there. And his boots were there. Which meant somebody picked him up. Because you do not walk anywhere in this state in January in sneakers. So back up. The night before, I told him. I was 22. He was 23. We'd been together since the summer I turned 20. And we had the upstairs half of a duplex on the north side of town. The kind where you can hear the woman downstairs running her sink. I'd taken the test on a Thursday and sat on it for 4 days because I wanted to tell him when he wasn't tired. I made the taco skillet thing he liked. I put the test on the counter next to the salt. And I was ready for anything except what he actually did. Which was nothing. He didn't yell. He didn't get happy. He asked me what day I took it. He asked me if I was sure about the dates. Not in an accusing way. More like he was doing math. Then he asked if I'd told anyone yet. And when I said only my sister Jane, he asked me to hold off on telling anybody else until we figured out how to tell his mom. I remember thinking that was sweet. I remember thinking, okay, he's scared, he needs a minute. He went and took a shower and stayed in there forever, and when he came out, he sat on the edge of the bed and talked about his mother for like 40 minutes. Not about me. Not about the baby. About her. About how she'd react. About how she had this whole idea of how things were supposed to go for him. About how she'd say he was throwing it away. Because Dolores. Okay, so, Dolores is the actual villain of this, and I need you to understand the setup or none of the rest makes sense. Elliot's mom had 2 boys. Him and Connor, and Elliot was the one. The one she bragged about, the one she'd tell people was going places. She had this thing she did where she'd compliment you and insult you in the same sentence, and then look at you like she was waiting to see if you'd caught it. First time I met her, she told me I had a very sweet little face and asked what my parents did. Second time, she asked if I was planning to stay in town my whole life. Elliot always said she was just like that, she doesn't mean it, she's protective. And I let it slide, over and over, for 2 Christmases and a Thanksgiving and 1 extremely tense birthday dinner. Because I loved him, and because I was 20 and I thought if I was nice enough for long enough, she'd eventually decide I was okay. I woke up at 6:30 and he wasn't there. His phone went straight to voicemail. Not ringing, and then voicemail. Straight to it. Which means off. I called 9 times, I texted, I checked the parking spot behind the building, and then I went downstairs in a hoodie and pounded on Jane's door. That's our landlady, Jane. She owned the duplex and lived in the bottom half and had a police scanner going 24/7. Honestly, a queen. And she said she'd heard the door around 5, and looked out because that's who she is. And there was a white SUV idling at the curb with its lights on. She described it. I knew that SUV. That was Dolores's. I want to be really clear that I did not sit around crying about this for weeks. I did that too, obviously. I was pregnant and blindsided and I threw up in Jane's kitchen sink. But I also drove over to his parents' place that same afternoon and knocked on the door until my knuckles hurt. Howard, his dad, opened it and did this thing where he stood in the gap so I couldn't see past him and said this wasn't a good time. I said it was absolutely a good time. Dolores came up behind him and told him to go sit down. And he went. Grown man, walked away. She didn't invite me in. She stood in her doorway in a cardigan with the storm door between us, and told me Elliot had gone overseas. Just like that. An opportunity had come up. It had been in the works. He'd left that morning, and she was sorry I found out this way, but these things happen fast. I said in the works since when, because he had a shift Tuesday, and we had a dentist appointment scheduled, and his coat was on the hook. She said I clearly didn't know him as well as I thought. So I said it. I said I'm pregnant. And I watched her face not change at all. And that's when I understood she already knew. She'd known since 5 in the morning. She'd probably known before I finished telling him. And she said, I have replayed this so many times I could recite it in my sleep. She said to raise that mistake alone. That her son was not going to destroy his life over 1 bad night with a girl like me. She said, girl like you. She said it through a storm door with her hand still on the frame like she was going to shut it and go finish her coffee. Which is exactly what she did. I sat in my car in their driveway for I don't know how long, and then I called my dad. Which, in hindsight, wow, Ronald is not a subtle man. He drove over there that same night without telling my mom and got into it with Howard in the driveway. Loud enough that the neighbors came out, and Howard kept saying he didn't know anything. He wasn't involved, ask Dolores. And my dad kept saying that was the most pathetic thing he'd ever heard a father say. Nothing physical. Before anyone asks, no wait, I'm not doing that. Whatever. Nothing physical. But it did nothing except give Dolores a story to tell people about how my family showed up screaming at her house. My mom Lorraine lost it at him for that, and that fight became its own thing for like a year. Mom's whole approach was that we needed to be calm and reasonable, and go through proper channels and not give them ammunition. And Dad's approach was that reasonable people don't get to talk to his daughter like that. They fought about it at my baby shower. They fought about it in the hospital parking garage. My mom would say things like we need to think about the long game, and my dad would say the long game is how those people win. Both of them making it about them, while I was throwing up every morning and trying to figure out how to afford the deposit on a smaller place. Because I could not carry that duplex alone, and Jane, bless her, could only knock so much off. I kept trying to reach him for months, and I need people to know that. I wasn't sitting there in silence being noble. I texted him paragraphs. I left voicemails that I'm sure were unhinged. I messaged him on Instagram, on Facebook. I messaged him from Jane's phone once when I thought maybe he'd blocked mine. Nothing bounced. It just went nowhere, which is worse. Travis was his best friend since middle school, and Travis lied to my face for 4 months. First he said he genuinely didn't know. Then he said Elliot was going through some stuff and needed space. Then, when I pushed him at the auto parts counter where he was buying wiper blades, he said something about how it wasn't his business and I should talk to Elliot's family. And I said his family told me he moved to another continent. Is that true? And Travis got busy looking at wiper blades. He stopped answering me after that. He's married now. I see his wife's posts sometimes. Connor was the one who cracked, a little. Elliot's younger brother, he was 19 then. And I ran into him at the gas station on the highway side of town in like April when I was showing. He wouldn't look at my stomach. I blocked him in front of the pumps and asked him straight out whether his brother was actually overseas. He said Elliot was figuring stuff out. I said that's not what I asked. He said his mom handled it and then immediately said he meant handled telling everyone, and I said no you didn't. He got in his truck. But he said one other thing before he shut the door, that Elliot had been talking about leaving for a while, since before. And when I asked before what, he pretended he didn't hear me and pulled out. Harley was born the second week of September. My dad was in the hallway the whole time because my mom said having him in the room would stress me out, and they had a whole argument about it while I was in labor, which, thanks, she's 3.5 now. She has his hairline, not his personality, thank God. She's loud and bossy, and will tell a stranger in the checkout line her entire life story. I did try the legal side. I filed. I sat in a beige office and filled out forms and gave them every address and phone number I had, and it went absolutely nowhere. Because you cannot serve papers on a person nobody will locate for you. His parents' address came back with nothing. Dolores was never going to hand him over. The whole thing stalled out, and after a while I stopped calling to check on it because it made me feel insane, sitting on hold to be told there were no updates. And she never left town. That's the thing that grinds me down. Dolores has been 3 miles away this entire time, going to the same grocery store, the same pharmacy. 2 Christmases ago, I was in line at the pharmacy counter with Harley in the cart, and Dolores got in line behind me. She looked at Harley for a good few seconds. Then she looked at me and asked how I was managing. In that voice, no. She asked how I was managing. And then she said she hoped I'd found someone who wanted that kind of responsibility. Then she paid for her stuff and left. Harley waved at her. Harley waves at everybody. Harley started asking about a dad this past year. Preschool, obviously, another kid's dad picked him up, and that was it. Questions forever. I've been saying he lives far away, which is true as far as I know. And she asked if he was on an airplane, and I said probably. And she's been telling people her dad is on an airplane, and I let her. Because what am I supposed to do? Okay, so here's what actually made me write this. 2 days ago, a woman named Juliet messaged me on Instagram. My account is public, mostly Harley pictures. She got to me because Travis's account is public too. And there are old tagged photos from a bonfire and somebody's wedding, and I'm in them. And she'd been going back through Elliot's tagged history, the way you do. And she found 4 years of pictures of a girl who is not her. Her message was not friendly. I want to be really clear that this was not a woman reaching out to sisterhood me. She asked if I used to date Elliot. Then before I answered, she sent 3 more messages saying she knew who I was already. That he'd told her about me. That he'd said I was an ex who wasn't well and who'd made up being pregnant to try and keep him. and that she'd already heard the whole story, so she just wanted to hear me say it. Then she asked, and this is word for word basically, whether I had a kid. I looked at that for a long time. She's engaged to him. There's a ring in her pictures. They're in another state. I didn't send her the photos. I didn't send her Harley's birth certificate. I didn't send her the 400 unanswered texts. I typed and deleted so much garbage. What I ended up sending was that she should ask Elliot about it first, and to come back to me after, and then I put my phone in the drawer with the batteries and the takeout menus and went and gave my kid a bath. She hasn't written back yet. It's been 2 days. Anyway, that's where I'm at. I don't know what I want from posting this. I think I just wanted to say it somewhere that isn't my mother. Update. So a bunch of you told me to screenshot everything before I did anything else, and honestly shout out to whoever said that. Because within about 6 hours of me posting, half of what I'm about to describe happened and I would have been sitting here going, wait, did he actually say that? Or did I make it up? Also to the person who commented asking why I even bothered telling Juliet to talk to him first instead of just dumping 4 years of receipts on her, I get it. I do. But I'd spent 4 years being the girl who chased him, chased Travis, chased Connor at a gas station like a lunatic while pregnant. I was not going to be the crazy ex, frantically sending a stranger baby pictures to prove I existed. If she wanted the truth, she could go get it from the man who was sleeping next to her. It took him about 9 hours. I was at my mom's, because Thursdays Harley eats there while I'm at work. And I came to pick her up and my mom had already fed her and was in the middle of telling me about some issue with the neighbor's fence when my phone started going. Unknown number. Out-of-state area code. I let it go to voicemail. Then it went again. Then again. My mom did this face like, "Are you going to get that?" And I said no. And then it went a 4th time and I walked out onto her back step and answered it just to make it stop. And it was him. I knew before he said anything because he clears his throat first. He's always done that, this dumb little throat thing before he talks on the phone. And 4 years disappeared in about half a second. He did not say hi. He did not say my name for like the first 2 minutes. What he said was, "What did you tell her?" Not "How are you?" Not "Is she mine?" "What did you tell Juliet?" And when I didn't answer fast enough, he kept going, saying he needed to know exactly what I sent because she'd been weird all day. She'd asked him things. She was upstairs and he was in his car outside his own house calling me, and he needed to know what I'd said so he could handle it. 4 years. I told him I'd said nothing, which is true, and he did not believe me. And honestly, that part almost made me laugh, because he kept pushing like it was a negotiation. He said, "Come on. You obviously said something. She doesn't just decide out of nowhere to grill me about a girl I dated in my 20s. And I said maybe she saw the photos and used her brain. And he said the photos are nothing. The photos are just photos. Then I asked him where he'd been. That's when the whole thing changed shape. Because I'd built this up in my head for 4 years as a confrontation where I'd be screaming, and instead I was sitting on my mom's back step with a bag of Harley's clothes in my lap, asking a very simple question. And he could not answer it. He started with the overseas thing, which, okay, he was gone about 10 months. 10 months. Then he was in Ohio. Then he moved again. He's been in the same state for over 2 years now. Less than a day's drive from here. And he said it like it was nothing. Like, of course, obviously, where did I think he was? I asked him if his mother told him to leave. He said nobody tells him what to do. I asked him whose SUV was outside my house at 5 in the morning, and he went off on how Jane was a nosy old woman who watched everybody. Which, first of all, correct, and second of all, notice he didn't say it wasn't Dolores's car. Then he tried to make me feel sorry for him, and this is the part I want you to hear because I want somebody to tell me I'm not insane. He said he was 23. He said it like 4 times over the course of that call. I was 23. I was a kid. I panicked. You don't know what that felt like. And I said I was 22. And I was also there. And I stayed. And he said that's different. I asked how. He said because it happened to me and I did it. Or something in that shape. And then he immediately walked it back and said that came out wrong. He also said, and I need to write this down before I lose it, that he always figured I'd handled it. Handled it. That was his word. He said when he didn't hear anything after a while, he assumed I'd handled it and moved on, and that he'd have known if I hadn't, because his mom would have told him. His mom would have told him. Dolores stood behind a storm door and told me to raise that mistake alone, and then spent 4 years telling her son that his life just quietly resumed. And when I said that to him, he defended her. Immediately, like a reflex. He said she was protecting him because he wasn't in a good place, that she'd only ever done what she thought was best, that I'd never liked her and I was doing what I always did. And I said, what do I always do? And he said, make her the villain of everything. I asked him if he wanted to know anything about his daughter. He was quiet. No. He didn't answer that. He answered a completely different question instead. He started talking about how Juliet's family is very involved, they do a lot together, her dad's a big deal to her, they've got a wedding in the fall and a whole thing planned, and this is not the time for a bomb to go off. He said if there's something to talk about, we can talk about it properly. Later. After. And I said after your wedding. And he said don't be like that. Don't be like that. Sir. Then he asked me not to answer her if she messaged again. He asked me twice. Then he offered, and I swear to God, he offered to come here in a few weeks and sit down with me properly and figure everything out, if I could just keep it between us until then. Him and his mother have the same brain. Word for word the same tactic. Just hold off telling anybody until we figure out how to tell people. I hung up on him mid-sentence. I didn't say anything clever. I just hung up and went inside, and my mom took one look at me and started asking who it was. And I told her. And she sat down hard at the kitchen table and said, okay. Let's think about this the right way. And that's how the second fight of the week started. This time between me and my mother. Lorraine's position, which she has held since 2022 and will apparently hold until she dies, is that we go through channels. She wanted me to call the office, refile, get a proper address on him now that we know what state he's in. Do it clean, let a judge handle it. Which, fine, I've already started that. I called Friday. I gave them the number he called from and everything he told me about where he lives. But she also said, and I'm quoting the spirit of it, that I should not talk to Juliet at all. That I should let the lawyers do it. That anything I say to that woman will get twisted and used against me. She's terrified I'm going to look unstable. She has been terrified of that for 4 years. She's the one who told me not to post about it back then. Not to make a scene. Don't give them anything. And I told her that being quiet and reasonable is exactly why he got to spend 4 years telling people I was a liar who faked a pregnancy. Nobody in his world ever heard my side because I was busy being dignified. She said I was being dramatic. My dad walked in halfway through this, because of course he did. And once Ronald found out Elliot called, he did not care about a single channel. He wanted to drive there. That night, he had the state in his phone maps before my mom got the words out. He kept saying that boy has a phone number now, that's all I needed for 4 years. And my mom kept saying you are not driving 11 hours to start something. And he said, watch me. And she said, this is exactly what happened in the driveway, Ronald. This is exactly it. And then we were back in 2022 having the driveway fight again in her kitchen with my kid in the other room watching Bluey. I made him give me the keys. I actually took them out of his hand. He let me, but he was mad. And he didn't talk to me for 2 days after, and then he called and apologized in his way, which is asking if my tires were okay for winter. Okay, so, Juliet, she wrote back Saturday. Not friendly. I want to keep saying that because people keep assuming she and I are going to become besties, and we are absolutely not. She said she'd asked him. She said he told her everything, and that his version was that we were together. Yes, that was true. But that I got pregnant, and he wanted to be involved, and my family shut him out. That my dad threatened him. That I moved and didn't tell him where. That he tried for a long time and eventually stopped because it was destroying him. My dad threatened him. Because of one screaming match in a driveway that Elliot was not physically present for, in a different state. Because he'd left before the sun came up. He took the one true thing, that my father lost it, and built an entire alibi on it. And Juliet believed enough of it to come back at me swinging. She asked why I never took him to court if he abandoned a child. She asked why there's no record of anything. She said if what I was saying was true, there'd be paperwork. There'd be something. And the fact that there was nothing said everything. There is paperwork. There's a stalled case with his name spelled right and every dead-end address I could give them. But she doesn't know that. And I wasn't about to start sending a stranger my legal documents at 11 at night like I was applying for something. What I did send her was one line. I asked her whether he told her he moved overseas. And if so, when he came back. Because that's the crack. Whatever he's told her about me, he cannot have told her the truth about the 10 months. Because the truth is, his mother put him in a car at 5 in the morning while I was asleep pregnant upstairs. And there's no version of that story where he looks like a man who was shut out. She read it. Nothing for a day. Then Sunday she sent me a photo. Not of them. It was a screenshot of a text thread between her and Dolores, and the only part I could see was Dolores telling her not to engage with me, that I had a history, that I'd been harassing the family for years. Underneath it, Juliet wrote one sentence asking me if that was true. So now his mother is talking to her about me, which means Dolores knows Juliet contacted me. which means Elliot ran straight to mommy the second his fiancée asked him a question, same as he did at 23. And I sat there at my kitchen table Sunday night and made a decision that my mother is going to hate, and that I have not told my dad about because he would show up with a truck. Dolores does the same thing every single Saturday morning. She's done it since before I met her. And I know exactly where she'll be this Saturday. And I know exactly who's going to be standing there with her. Because it's the same 6 or 7 people every week. And they're her people. The ones she's been feeding her version to for 4 years. I'm going. And I'm bringing Harley. I told Connor I was coming. That's the one thing I did that I'm second guessing. He's 23 now. He still lives at home. And he answered my message within a minute even though we haven't spoken since that gas station. And all he wrote back was, "Please don't do this here." And then a minute later, she'll be with Paula. Paula is Dolores' sister. Paula, who I met twice, who was the only person in that family who ever hugged me. I don't know what Connor meant by that. I don't know if it was a warning or if he was telling me something. Anyway, Saturday's in 4 days. My mom thinks I'm dropping the whole thing until the office calls back. Final update, first. To everybody who commented telling me not to bring my kid, I heard you. And I want to explain. Because I thought about it for 4 days and barely slept over it. Harley was not a prop. I did not walk her in there to make a scene with a 3-year-old. What I actually did was bring her to the church hall lot where they do the Saturday thing every week. And my sister Jane sat with her in the car with the heat on, and a bag of goldfish and the iPad, 20 feet from the door. Because Harley loses her mind if I'm out of sight for more than 10 minutes and there was no version of that morning where I was leaving her with my mother, who by that point was not speaking to me. Because yeah, mom found out. Thursday, Ronald told her, because I told my dad Wednesday night after all, since I decided if I was going to do the biggest thing I've ever done, I wasn't going to do it, while lying to the one person who's wanted to swing at these people since 2022. He kept his mouth shut for about 19 hours, which for him is impressive. My mom called me and said I was about to hand them everything they'd been saying about me on a plate. That a woman who shows up at somebody's Saturday morning is exactly the woman Dolores has been describing. And I said, good. Then at least once in my life I'll deserve the reputation. She hung up on me. She showed up Saturday anyway, 20 minutes after it started, standing at the back by the coat rack with her purse in both hands. I'll get to that. So the setup. Dolores has done the same thing every Saturday since before I met Elliot. She and her sister Paula and the same little crew run the coffee and the pastry table at the parish hall after the early service. It's like 8 people, plus whoever wanders in, plus half the older families in that part of town cycling through for a donut. These are her people. This is the audience she has been performing for my entire adult life. This is where the story of the poor Dolores, whose son's life almost got ruined by a girl, was born and raised and fed weekly for 4 years. I got there at 9:20. I had a folder, which sounds insane, but it was a plastic school folder with Harley's birth certificate copy, the filing paperwork from the office with the case number on it, and printouts of the text threads from January 2022. The paragraphs I sent Elliot for 4 months, all unanswered, with the dates. I didn't bring it to prove anything to Dolores. Dolores knows. I brought it for the room. Paula saw me first. She was putting out those little foil trays and she stopped with one in her hands and she said my name like a question. And then she said, "Oh, honey." And that's when I understood what Connor meant. Because here's the thing about Paula that I only put together standing in that hall. Paula hugged me twice, 4 years ago. And Paula stopped coming to Dolores' Christmases in 2023. Connor told me later it was over this. Not out of love for me. Paula and Dolores have had a whole Cold War for years about how Dolores treats her kids. And Elliot leaving became the thing Paula wouldn't let go of. And the two of them have basically been circling each other over the pastry table every Saturday for 2 years like nothing happened. So when I told Connor I was coming, and he said she'll be with Paula, he wasn't warning me. He was telling me the room wasn't as solid as I thought. Dolores came out of the kitchen with a coffee urn. I want to tell you she went pale or something, and she absolutely did not. She put the urn down, she looked at me, she looked past me at the door, and she asked me what I thought I was doing, in her normal Saturday voice, and then she took my elbow to steer me toward the hallway. Actual hand on my arm. I took my arm back and I said we could do it right here. And I said it loud. I said her name first, so everybody's head came up. I said I wanted to talk about the morning of January 19th, 2022, when she drove to my house at 5 in the morning and put her son in her car while I was upstairs asleep and 8 weeks pregnant, and then stood in her doorway that afternoon and told me to raise that mistake alone. She didn't deny it. That's what I keep coming back to. She had one chance right there in front of 40 people to say I never said that. And instead she said, immediately, that she said it because it was true. She went off. She talked for a solid 2 minutes and nobody stopped her. She said her son was 23 years old and I knew exactly what I was doing. That she'd watched me for 2 years attach myself to him. That his whole life was mapped out and I was the thing that was going to end it. She said any mother would have done the same. She said she'd do it again tomorrow. She said I'd spent 4 years harassing that family. And she used harassing. And Paula made a noise. And she asked, in front of everyone, what kind of woman shows up at a church hall on a Saturday with a folder? And I said the kind whose kid asks if her dad is on an airplane. Then I opened the folder and I did not shove it in her face. I put it on the pastry table, next to the donuts, and I said out loud what each thing was. Slow. Because the people in that room have known her forever, and have never once heard a date attached to any of this. Filing date. Case number. 4 months of texts with timestamps. Birth certificate with his last name on it. Because I put it there. Because I was 22 and stupid and still hoping. Dolores said anybody can print anything. Which sure, but you should have seen the 2 women by the coffee who'd already leaned in. Here's where it got ugly, and this is the part my mother witnessed. Because that's when Lorraine came in the back. Paula said out loud to her own sister in front of everybody that she had told her at the time that it was wrong. That she'd sat in Dolores's kitchen in the spring of 2022 and told her to let the boy come home and face it. And that Dolores had told her to mind her own business. And Dolores turned on her so fast. She said Paula had never had children and didn't get a say. Paula lost a baby in the 90s. Everybody in that room knew it. Connor told me after that his mom pulls that out maybe once a decade and it always works. And Paula walked out. Just took her apron off, dropped it on a chair, walked out. Her husband followed her. I didn't feel bad. I know I'm supposed to say I felt bad that the family blew up in front of everybody. I stood there and watched a woman finally get treated the way she'd been treating me. And I was fine. Dolores kept going. That's the thing, she would not stop. She started saying I'd come there to humiliate her. That I'd planned it. And I said yes. Yes, I planned it. I said I picked Saturday. I picked this room. I picked the hour. Because this is where you tell the story. And I wanted to be here when somebody finally asked you a question about it. And she said something about how I would never have a family like hers, and I said thank God. And then my mother spoke. Lorraine, who told me to be quiet for 4 years, walked up to that table and told Dolores that she'd spent 4 years telling her daughter to be reasonable, and it was the worst advice she'd ever given anybody. She said she'd sat in a hospital hallway arguing with her husband about who got to be in the room while this woman's son was in another state. She said it shaking. Then she took the folder off the pastry table, closed it, and stood next to me, which is the single most she has ever done in her entire life. And then Elliot called Dolores while we were still standing there. Not me. Her? She answered it in the middle of a room and started talking to him about me. And I put my hand out and I said, "Give me the phone." And she wouldn't. And she started telling him people were making a scene. And I said his name loud enough that he heard it. And she handed it over. I think because she wanted him to fix it. He was already talking when I got it. He wanted to know what I was doing at his mother's church. He said I was out of control, that I'd gone after his family, that this was exactly what he'd been trying to avoid. He said I could have just waited 3 weeks and talked to him properly like an adult. So I asked him the only thing I actually wanted an answer to. And I asked it standing in front of 40 people with the phone half off my ear so they could hear his voice. I asked him if he'd known that morning that he was leaving. And he said yes. He said it fast and annoyed, like it was the least important part. He said yes. Obviously he knew. He'd been talking about going since the fall. He had a chance to get out of here and his mom told him if he stayed he'd never go. And he made a call, and he was 23. And I'd have done the same thing. He'd been planning it since the fall. Before the test. Which means the night I told him. When he sat on the bed and talked about his mother for 40 minutes, and asked me not to tell anybody yet. He wasn't scared and processing. He was deciding whether to tell me the flight was already a thing. Then he asked me, and I need you to understand he asked me this while his mother's Saturday coffee crowd was standing there listening, whether I'd told Juliet yet. Still, that's still the question. 4 years later, standing in the wreckage, the man's only concern is what the woman he's marrying knows. I said I hadn't told her anything, and that she'd been asking me for a week about the 10 months overseas and I hadn't answered that either, and that he should probably go handle that. Then I hung up on his mother's phone and put it back on the pastry table. Juliet messaged me Sunday night. One message. She said she'd asked him about the timeline, and about January 19th specifically, and that he'd told her 3 different versions in one evening, and that she'd found the flight thing herself because his own brother posted about it at the time. She said the wedding was off, or maybe just off for now, she wasn't sure yet. She said she was not doing this for me and asked me not to message her again, and she blocked me before I could answer. And honestly, good. She doesn't owe me anything either. Where it's at now. The office has a live address and a phone number that works, and things are actually moving for the first time since 2022, which is the boring part, but it's the part that matters for Harley. Paula messaged me Tuesday. She's not speaking to her sister. Connor drove over here Sunday and sat in my kitchen for 2 hours and told me about the spring of 2022 and how his mom handled things, and cried a little. And I let him. But I also told him he had 4 years to say something at a gas station, and he said nothing. And he didn't argue. Travis's wife unfollowed me, which is hilarious. My dad wants me to let him call Elliot. He's not calling Elliot. My mom came over Monday and helped me clean out the hall closet, and while she was in there, she found the black Carhartt still hanging in the back, because I never got rid of it, and she asked me what I wanted to do with it, and I said throw it out. She put it in the bin herself. Dolores hasn't said one word to me since Saturday. Somebody told Connor she didn't come to the coffee thing this week. Harley still tells people her dad is on an airplane. I haven't figured out what to say to her instead yet. I'll deal with it when she's older. Or I won't. I don't know. But every person in that hall knows now that she exists and who she is. And Dolores can never again stand at that pastry table and tell anybody there was no baby. That's it. That's what I got. 4 years and 1 Saturday morning.